the title industry, I think, struggles with real business development. I don't think anybody would argue that. So, Scott, turn me around. How do I do it? Welcome to the podcast. With me today is Chuck Haney, CEO, president of Signature XL, a notary signing agency in the United States, and Scott Leese. And I'm going to introduce Scott in just a minute. I'm going to leave him as a mystery man for just a minute. Let me introduce you first, Chuck. I'm reading your bio here, so forgive me, but you're had a successful career, has a successful career as an entrepreneur with several startups and exits. One of the companies Chuck started was a small, unique warehouse furniture showroom, initially in a 1,000 square foot space with $13,000 borrowed from credit cards. And he grew the venture to 17 locations in 20 years worth of business. So that means $20 million a year in business. So that means you come pick me up in your jet, Chuck, now that you've had all that success, and fly to see Scott. Chuck took Signature XL, the notary signing agency that he owns, from an idea on the back of a cocktail napkin to a fully detailed business plan in 2018 to one of the most successful, well-respected, award-winning, that's a mouthful, national signing agencies in the country. Congrats on that. You believe, Chuck, strongly in personal, team, and character development, and you put your money where your mouth is, as he and his team have been through continuous training and development work. He believes the success of any venture starts with hiring the right people. He calls it hearts and smarts. You'll have to talk about what that means here a little bit more, Chuck. I'm going to ask you about that. Bring on smart, driven, and coachable people. The industry and details can be taught and learned quickly with the right people. So he builds a great team, and he continues to mentor, train, and incentivize them, and they will take great care of your customers, Chuck, and anybody else who follows in your footsteps. So, Chuck, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
Talking to us from Scottsdale, Arizona today? Correct. All right. Awesome. All right. So we're here with a guy that we know. And when I first met Scott, I thought he had this sort of dark past, which I'll talk about in a second, but he really did. He's a great guy. But and we've gotten to know each other the last year or so. So Scott is a 6-time, I'm reading the bio again, 6-time sales leader, 5X founder, 3X author with numerous industry awards for excellence in sales leadership. And so do you have time to sleep? I don't know. It's like you're working 24/7 here. One of the top startup sales leaders in the country. He is a strategic advisor to companies around the world with a resume that includes working with 12 unicorns and being a part of 11 exits, which I can certainly attest to some of that. Through domestic and international consulting, he has trained an army of salespeople, 1,000 strong, through coaching and community. A highly sought after consultant, advisor, leader, and sales trainer, Scott Leese has a proven record of success building and scaling businesses from the ground up. Amen. Leese puts his 20 years of sales and leadership experience to use as the founder of Scott Leese Consulting, Milos Ventures. I'd like to know about that. And the Surf and Sales Summit, which I plan on attending this year, Scott. Scott also co-hosts the highly successful Surf and Sales podcast. Nobody calls their sales podcast Surf and Sales. That's phenomenal. Scott lives in Austin, but home is in the lineup. In the lineup is the Playa Grande. Did I say that right? Playa Grande.
Yeah, Playa Grande.
Because you're a dyed-in-the-wool surfer through and through, and that's what you really love to do, and help people grow. So Scott, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's good to be here with you guys.
I think Chuck and I are going to bat this ball back and forth with you and talk about how to grow a successful company, no matter what stage. I think, Chuck and I were talking before we came on, there's that, the book 0 to 1, that's a great book. That's a really hard thing to do. Start from, bootstrapping and get to that, whatever that first level of success is. But then going from 1 to unicorn status, which I know, Scott, you have a lot of experience with. Chuck, you have a lot of experience with the 0 to 1. So let us pick your brain about that. So let me start off with this. Let me just throw you a huge open-ended question that you can run with anywhere you want. You were the guy, the wizard behind the curtain at Qualia on the sales team, and you started with nothing or very little over there when they first were ramping up, and you grew it to be this icon in the industry that people doubted. I got to tell you, I was in the title industry. Chuck is in the title industry, and I heard all the stories and all the whispers that it'll never work. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. This company is not, they're not doing things the way we used to do them. But sure enough, here they are. They're leading the industry. So, Scott, tell us what we need to know.
Oh man.
Got to be a good story.
Yeah, I I first learned about this company Qualia in maybe 2016, like in the spring or something like that. They were just building the product, and I ended up doing a little bit of consulting for them. And one of the things that I realized that turned out to be really essential, I think, for our growth was it's so complex, the title industry and the software around it. There's a million and one different features and things that it does and all this kind of stuff. And one of the things I realized was the way the founders were trying to talk about it was to go through this litany of stuff that can be done. And I'm like, guys, I don't come from this industry, and I'm not that smart. So we need to dumb this down and distill it from like 1,000 different things to what are the core like 3 to 5 things that actually matter. And then let's get people to ask us a bunch of questions and and go from there rather than us just guessing what's important to everybody. So that was really the very first thing that I did. And it's a mistake that founders make in any industry is they fall in love with their product and their baby, and they think every little feature matters, but it doesn't. And what matters to each particular prospect or buyer or person is very different. And so you've got to find like the core kinds of things, and then everything else has got to be a conversation, right? So that was the first step, was kind of convincing them we need to simplify this thing. And I just said I had no title insurance experience, which that's totally true. I couldn't even have told you what title insurance was back then, right? But what I saw was an industry in my mind that was very antiquated, okay, slow to adopt change, very conservative, kind of a good old boys type network in order to get things done. Did not have any modern competitors. I felt like the product itself was going to be vastly superior. And what was missing was a world-class modern sales organization. Basically, like nobody had built a SaaS style sales org in this title software industry. All the deal flow had been by who you know and going to events and shaking hands and kissing babies and that type of thing. And I thought, well, this is prop tech. This is real estate. We're talking about Lord knows how much money and Lord knows how big of a TAM, a total addressable market, there was. This could be a home run. And so I saw opportunity in this unsexy space that nobody really knew about. And I'm like, I think I got the best in class product. I think at the time we can come in with best in class pricing. And if I build a best in class sales organization, that's like, the holy trinity here. I think we can knock it out of the park. And sure enough, everybody said it wasn't going to work. People from the industry were like, that's not how deals get done. This is almost 10 years ago now. So I was in my like mid 30s at the time. And, there was a lot of like, good luck, kid. You don't know what you're doing, that type of thing. And I just kind of said, well, the fact that nobody's doing it this way does not scare me at all. It means we're going to be unique and we're going to be different. And we're going to be able to talk to more people than the soft pros and the reswares are able to on an every single day basis. And our initial kind of outreach and conversations and everything is going to help us go viral a little bit and get some publicity, and people will start to know who we are and hear about what we do and all that kind of thing. And so that was the approach, man. Was not scared off by everybody telling me it wasn't going to work. Saw it as a challenge. Thought, I think I've built these kind of orgs before. There's no reason I can't do it in this industry. And off we went. And it kind of started with taking this complex solution and product and simplifying it into a way that you could tell somebody who's not from the industry like what we do, why it matters, why they should do it now, why we're better than other people, and so forth. And that was how we got started.
There's I want to dig into that more, but before we do, I want to bring Chuck in and into this conversation. Scott, when you went to Qualia, and I know you've been in bootstrap startups, we've talked about that in the past. Did they sort of just throw a big war chest at you and said, make it happen, sink or swim, and here's a big bucket of money? Or did you have constraints and a tight budget?
Yeah.
Even though they were fairly well funded, or so the story goes.
Yeah, they were funded on the product side. And if you know how Silicon Valley tends to work, nobody just hands a sales leader like a blank check and a black AMX card and says, go make it happen.
No,
it's very like, hands in the mud, get dirty, bare bones. You don't have a million tools to do this stuff with. And only as you grow and succeed do you start to gain trust and, go hire a couple more people or buy this tool over here to help you scale and get more data and all that kind of thing. So, it was not like that whatsoever. They had no paying customers when I showed up. I started in mid-November, I think, of 2016 full-time. They had no paying customers. It took me a couple weeks to figure out what the heck this industry is all about, what we do. Not that I was an expert after 2 weeks, but just literally even trying to recite some key terms and stuff like that. And then figure out what's a sales pitch maybe going to sound like? Who are the targets? Where should we start? What's our ideal customer profile? What are the objections I'm going to run into? What's that competitive landscape look like? All this kind of thing. And then by December, I started, getting out there, and I started following up with people that the founders had talked to previously. And I think we closed something like 17, 18 deals in December. So we went from no paying customers to 18 deals.
That's a lot.
And at that point, there was tons of chatter and momentum internally. The company was maybe, I don't know, 20 something people total, almost all of them engineering, right? But there was a lot of buzz. It was oh shit, we're on to something. And I was pumping the brakes, and I'm hold on. All I did really was just follow up with people that you all had talked to before, but you were unable to kind of close. So, I need time here for these prospects that I've been talking to mature and demonstrate that I can source opportunities, nurture them, and close them myself, right? So I need to prove I'm not a fluke, basically. And this is not a one-hit wonder situation. So I go into January, and I think we maybe closed one less deal than in December, basically the same number. And at that point, I went to the team and said, I think I got this figured out. We went from nothing to 35 customers or whatever the number was in 2 months. I'm I think I got this figured out. I think if I did this full time, here's what, my quota would be. Here's what an overperformance would be. Here's what bad performance would be. Here's what I think the sales cycle will be like. Here's the conversion metrics. It's going to take me this many calls to talk to this many people. This many people will take demos. This many people will take a contract. This many people all of that stuff, right? 2 months worth of data, still a guess, but it's enough to make an accurate kind of guess. And so, we ended up hiring a couple salespeople. My job is to get those people ramped and able to do what I, was doing. They were able to do that. And then, we kind of, I think, went from 3 reps to 10 reps. and then from 10 reps to like 15 and so forth, and just kind of slowly started, scaling up. Invested really heavily in sales ops and rev ops, making sure we had really good operational rigor and pipeline management, and we're looking at the right, reports and dashboards and all this kind of stuff. It was not a, it was more uh, kind of prove it and scale as you go rather than let's just hire 100 people and make stuff happen.
The work. So let's bring Chuck in on this. Chuck, you you brought two companies out of the ground, and have some similar stories to tell, like Scott. But where Scott was the CRO of Qualia, you're the guy operating running the company, your first company, the furniture company, and Signature XL. What have you learned over the last couple of decades about taking a company with no budget, with no revenue, and growing it into something that is viable?
I kind of echo Scott a little bit. You think you've got to see what everybody else is doing and then go the opposite direction. You got to figure out, they call it a unique selling proposition, but how are you going to differentiate yourself? Basically, when I first met Scott, if you remember, I reached out to you. I was one of your 100,000 followers on LinkedIn, and I happened to see you were at Qualia, and I reached out and said, "Hey, any opportunities there?" And you said, "Yeah, I'll hook you up with the guy who runs the vendor marketplace." And that was one of the things that really got us going. We've done millions and millions of dollars in that vendor marketplace. That was 2019 since then. But I started out doing the same thing you just described all founders do. They go to the conventions, they go to the conferences, they go door to door. I was driving around town, taking bagels and donuts, knocking on doors, talking to escrow officers, and found out, okay, they just say you're just another one of those companies that's got notaries. How do you find yourself different? So it's, again, very true what you said. As founders, owners, we fall in love with features and benefits. Got to espouse our features and benefits, and people get sick of hearing that. So really, I kind of switched the equation. Okay, I got to find what the pain point is. And I started asking people, hey, if you could wave a magic wand and change anything about your current service that you didn't like and make it better, what would that be? And I started getting all kinds of reactions. The level of the professionalism of the notary is bad. The response time from the service is bad. And it was key questions, key answers in order to know what I had to do in order to differentiate myself and provide a different service or a different level of service. And I think that goes back, no matter what business I've been in, everybody's like, take care of your customers. And we all say we take care of our customers, but I believe it starts with the internal employees. You got to take care of your employees, and your employees take care of your customers. So everything you talked about in the bio is I'm big in training and development and mentorship and hiring the right people. I think it starts there. And I'm not always perfect on that, but hearts and smarts is an easy, nice term to coin there. But really, I'd rather find somebody who's sharp and aggressive and is driven than somebody who's got eons of experience in the industry, whether it was furniture or home improvements or whatever else I've been in. But even in the title industry, you can teach the industry, just like Scott came into it, knew nothing about it, and moved, mountains to build that company. I think it's important to find the right people, and you can train them on the technical aspect of the industry, what they need to know to be successful. But really, that's what I did differently. And again, Scott, unknowingly, probably at that point, gave me a good start, foot in the door hold with Qualia.
He's got his fingers in a lot of stuff. Okay, so let me ask both of you. Let me start with you, Scott. I'm very interested in how you went from sort of a bad pitch to a great pitch, from giving all the details to probably doing something at a higher level, at a 30,000 foot level. Was it all about addressing pain points? I mean, what was the psychological strategy that you used to get people interested? And Chuck, I want to, both of you guys are in a highly commoditized industries, lots of competition, lots of history of others doing it a certain way. And I know the software industry and title, and I know how it is for signing agencies. And, it's just hard to break out of that. So Scott, start with that. How did you get to a better strategy than what was being done?
Well, I sort of believe that we overcomplicate sales, we overcomplicate business, we overcomplicate relationships, everything. And we tend to show up and sort of just like think our product or our service or whatever should be enough. And so like Chuck said, it's like features and benefit and whatnot. So most salespeople show up and they're like, "Hey Chuck, this is Scott from Qualia. We do blah 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 blah." Right? Well, people recoil from that. They know it's a sales call, it's annoying. So my basic thesis is that nobody cares until they believe they have a problem. And they only believe they have a problem when they admit it to you themselves, not when you tell them that they have a problem. So I might call Chuck up back in the day, 10 years ago, and be like, "Hey, Chuck, you're out in Arizona. You run your title company. What do you guys use over there? Soft Pro or something like that?" And Chuck would be like, "Yeah, who's this?" Like, "My name's Scott, VP of sales over at this new title insurance company called Qualia. You've probably never heard of us. Question for you." And I literally used to use Chuck's magic wand question. So I was smiling ear to ear when he said that. I was like, if you had a magic wand over there, like what's a couple things that are busted with Soft Pro or Resware or RamQuest or whatever the hell, e-closing, all these different things. And people would willingly and freely tell you, "Well, I would change this, I would change that." So they just started every single call by sort of barfing up all these problems with their current system. And so I'd sit here and listen and I'd be like, "Damn, that's a lot. That's a lot of stuff actually that's problematic. How long you guys been with them?" And they'd tell me how long they've been with them. And I'm like, "Was that your choice or somebody else's choice? Did you inherit that from somebody else?" And then they'd tell you that, and like, what would it take to kind of take a look at something else? Have you ever took a look at something else? Right? So I'm sort of starting off by saying, "What's going on over there? What do you use? What don't you like?" And they tell me. So now they've admitted that they have pain, that they have problems. What most people don't do, even after they admit they have a problem of some sort, is take any action on it, right? It's no different than somebody who's got an addiction issue. First step is get them to admit they have a problem. A lot of people know they have a problem and don't do anything about it, right? Well, part of the reason they don't do anything about it is because they're maybe unaware of the damage that they're causing. A lot of people with addiction issues don't know to the degree they're wrecking their body or they're wrecking their relationships and whatnot. Okay, well, Chuck, in this hypothetical case, might not realize how all of these problems with his busted title software are affecting him, his employees, and his business. So I might say something like, "Has anybody ever taken the time to explain to you why this stuff is worth fixing?" And then everybody's guard would kind of come down a little bit and they'd be like, "Well, I mean, I kind of know, but like, why? What are you thinking?" And I'd be like, "Well, this is a result of it. This is a result of it. And that is a result of it." So I try to educate them basically. I'm trying to build some value. All right. That's my second step. So I've got them to admit pain. Then I'm building some value. Right. Just like with addicts, nobody does anything until they've done what? They've hit rock bottom. Rock bottom is urgency, basically. So people can know they have a problem, know why they should fix it, and still do nothing. They'll find a reason to kick the can down the road and be like, "I'll deal with that this summer," or "I'll deal with that on January 1st," right? So my job then was to create some urgency and inject some urgency in this, right? It could be stuff like, well, you're having to rekey all this info. So even if you had like 5 more deals every day to process, your staff literally wouldn't be able to do it. So you're missing out on 5K a day times 300 working days a year or whatever. That's X 100 and X amount, 1.5 million or whatever the math is that you're missing out on. Or it'd be your employees frustrated because they're using this busted software from 1982 and they're jumping ship and going to work somewhere else. And you just keep going. And it's like, this is $1 million problem we've identified. Where else in your business, Chuck, is there $1 million problem that you could take action on today? And most people would be like, well, I've got a bunch of stuff I'm working on, but none of them are really worth $1 million. And so now I'm sort of jumping the line and saying, hey, this title software issue actually is the most valuable thing in your entire business that you could fix. And then they'd say, well, you got a point there. Tell me about this Qualia. I've never heard of this company. And so I would tell them a little bit. I'd say, I'd love the opportunity to just show you what we do. And I'll literally go brick by brick. And you tell me the things that are problematic with e-closing and so, and I'll show you how we do it. And then I'd show them, and every single time, I'm not lying, guys, they'd be like, holy cow, this is amazing, right? This platform is way better. Oh my God, it's way faster, right? So that was how I created interest, and that interest would become opportunity. And then you just have to, follow up with these people, handle their questions, massage their concerns and stuff like that. And off you go, right? So 4-step process: find pain, build value, create urgency, and then and only then would I discuss my product or my solution. That was what we did.
So just a quick follow-up before I ask Chuck. So as the VP of sales, you were making sales calls yourself in the beginning?
In the beginning, yeah. I'm a firm believer that whenever you jump in as a sales leader, you need to learn everything there is, and you need to get your hands dirty and prove that you can sell this too. Otherwise, you're not going to have the respect or commitment from everybody else to follow your process.
Yeah, that's great.
I needed to know what the hell I was talking about. And then I could remove myself and move more into a teacher and strategic kind of executive type role. But in the beginning, I had to sell as well.
And how long did you sell for? What was that time period?
Well, kind of full time, if you will, just like 3 months.
Okay.
But then it became a little bit, part time, like I'm working deals that I've been working, but I'm helping the first couple reps on their sales calls and deals until they can start to do these things by themselves. And so, you start off kind of all in and kind of an individual contributor role, and then you slowly are sort of pulling away until, at the end, when we had, I don't know, a couple hundred people working in the company, and maybe there was 100 people in some capacity of sales and account management role, I wasn't really, actively closing any deals at all. Like Chuck messages me and I'm like, oh, you should talk to so-and-so and they'll help you out. Right.
Okay. So Chuck, you're in a different vertical, and your service versus Qualia's technology. And I'm sure there's service that goes along with it, but Qualia technology first. How do you differentiate Signature Excel? Or how would anybody who's a service-based organization, not just a signing agency, differentiate themselves from the competition, especially in the beginning when nobody knows you? How did you do that?
I think it starts with personal relationships. People like to do business with people they know and they like. So that's the challenge, is getting in front of people, developing a rapport before you even start selling, or even got into pain points or features and benefits. I had to open a dialogue with people and just let them know who I was. And, I wasn't there to close them. I just wanted to get to know them. And that was getting the face to face, whether it was local or going to conferences out there. But then I think what we did in furniture was get out in the community as far as notoriety. We won some awards, and we just did that recently in Signature Excel too. We won a BBB award, and we also just got named an Alta Elite Provider, which gave us credibility. Then I started getting into some of the national clients, and that gives real oomph when you start name dropping some of the big guys you're doing business with. Wow, I ought to listen to this guy. If he's doing business with so-and-so, I know so-and-so. So now I need to start listening to maybe what he's doing. So getting into a few big accounts and name dropping actually opened up some doors. But, it was a challenge. It was a challenge as Scott talked about in the beginning. This is a good old boys industry and very antiquated and very slow to change. So they'd rather kick the can down the road. Sometimes dealing with the existing pain was better than the pain it would take to change and solve it. So I offered some service guarantees, satisfaction guarantees, money back guarantees. Just let me get my foot in the door, let me prove myself to big national clients. They had 8 vendors in there already signing services. They were doing tens of thousands of signings a month. And he said, just let me in the door, let me prove myself. Within a year, I moved up to number 1 with both of them. And it was just service. You could talk about feature and benefits, but it's just service. That's all we are, is a service business. So it's who's going to deliver that service the best, who's going to respond the quickest. And that was the pain points. So that's what I did. I overhired, built up a team bigger than our volume justified at that point. But we were Johnny on the spot. Any problem, any issue, any response, we were there. And that earned us a lot of loyalty. Mistakes happen. Nobody's perfect, but it's who's going to fix it, who's going to get back to them the quickest. That's what we excelled at.
Awesome. Okay, so let me throw a hypothetical at both of you. And I'm going to throw it out there. You can answer any way you want. I'm a title agent. I own a company, and we do anywhere from 20 closings a month to 100 closings a month based on what the industry and the economy is doing. Right now, it's probably 20 to 30, and I'm hoping that within 12 to 18 months, it's back up to the 100. But I've hired a few reps. They haven't worked out. I've had some marketing reps. They deliver the donuts. But there's no real, the title industry, I think, struggles with real business development. I don't think anybody would argue that. So, Scott, turn me around. How do I do it?
Well, the first thing I have to fix is your mindset, because right now you sound pretty resigned to the fact that the market sucks and you're going to do 20 to 30 and you got to wait and hunker down to be able to do 100. And I don't have that mindset. And it doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means that's not my mindset. So I think that I have more growth opportunity. And so I'm going to probably work harder to find it. I'm going to be a little bit more confident. I'm going to be a little bit more creative. So I'm proactive rather than reactive. And I have to instill that belief system in every individual working in the company. At least that's my belief as a leader. They're going to follow me. If I'm sort of like, okay, guys, we just got to hang on, then everybody's going to feel like we just have to hang on. If I'm feeling confident, like we can go make it happen no matter what, then hopefully everybody else kind of comes up. So that's the first thing that I would do. The second thing I would do is you need to increase the strength of the relationships that you have already, to Chuck's point, and you need to increase the volume of relationships that you have, meaning you need to go network your backside off over and over and over again. That means not just with like real estate agents and brokers, anybody in some type of complementary type business that is involved in any and all of the real estate transaction stuff. Could be a surveyor, it could be a construction worker. I don't care who it is, a mortgage, a loan officer, or whatever. Any of these people, right? All of these people can potentially be referral partners for you. You never know, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to be out there and active in the community and seek out these people and do what's necessary to try to grow these relationships. Underwriters will be another group of people that you need to try to nurture relationships with. Maybe people who work in banking industry even. Okay. So that's that. The next thing I would say is, in my experience, most people who work in sales at title companies are not good salespeople. Just going to put it out there. There are people from the title industry who understand title that got assigned the role of salesperson because they're not afraid to talk to people. That's about it. So if you stopped over-indexing on industry acumen and actually hired for sales acumen, your performance on the sales side would go way up. It is far more difficult to teach somebody how to be a good salesperson than it is to teach them basic information about the title insurance business. You cannot argue with me on that point because I hired hundreds of them. Not a single person I hired on the sales side had title insurance background. I avoided it like the plague. I didn't want to have to fight somebody saying that's not how it's done in the title insurance industry, right?
Yeah, right.
So you typically people in the title insurance business are hiring the wrong type of individuals into those sales roles. And then they wonder why some of the sales performance is not as strong as it should be. And then once people are in that role, they need training, they need coaching, they need development. And if you're not doing it for them every single day, you've got to find somebody else to do it. A sales leader, a third party like sales coach, a group or community that those salespeople can learn from, sales events they can go to. Somebody has to be fostering their career development. Otherwise, they're just going to sit there and you're going to get the minimum viable performance level for them to stay employed because you've got the wrong people and you're not helping them succeed. So there's like 4 specific things that I'd point out right there. And I'll turn it over to Chuck and he can go off and tell me the things that I didn't think of.
Oh,
Okay,
you
Chuck,
stole
same
thunder
question.
there. Those are excellent points. But I'll start with attitude. I will echo that. You know, when COVID hit, everybody, the world is crashing. What's going to happen? Oh my God. You know, the silver lining of COVID was our business exploded. People didn't want to go into the title company and sit down and sign a bunch of papers. Title people didn't want customers coming into their title company signing papers. So the outsourcing to signing services and notaries exploded. Probably as high a percentage of signings were outsourced as ever, I would guess. So our business really took off. So then you had interest rates drop. Business even grew even more. Then you had interest rates go up to what, 7%? And business fell down. And it's like, oh, the sky is falling again. But one guy in the industry said something to me that really stuck, and I've used it in a lot of my stuff is when the time to work on the plane is not when it's in the air, it's when it's on the ground. So that was my approach to a lot of people is like, hey, I know business has slowed down for you a bit, but now's the time, since it's slower, to fine tune your vendor roster and make sure you're tuned up and have these absolute best vendors positioned because we all know it's going to come back. Everything's cyclical. But vet your vendors and make sure you've got, number one, adequate backups, and two, they're the best ones that you can use. So let me get my foot on the door. Vet us, test us. So when the rocket takes off, you know you've got a backup or maybe even a new number one. So that mindset was there, and it got me in a lot of doors just with that mindset right there. Especially with all the cyber attacks. That was another one that scared a lot of people. Some of the big 3 home signing services, they got shut down for a week when cyber attacked their software. And it's like, you need backup vendors. What you got all your eggs in one basket. What if one goes down? What are you going to do? So that got us in the door in a number of places too. And that's all I ever want to do is get my foot in the door, let us prove ourselves, and let us work our way up the totem pole. Maybe we don't get to number one, but in many cases we did. So I think those are a couple things in addition to what Scott just said, or some of the things that we relied on. But I get it.
Yeah.
The industry people, hiring industry people, you always think they got a Rolodex of contacts and they can just make a few phone calls and bring on clients. And that doesn't always work.
Yeah.
You,
Rarely
you
works.
didn't exactly say this, but I think what you're sort of echoing Scott in so many words. You know, get out there, hustle, have energy, have a positive attitude. You know, don't buy into all the woe is me stuff in this market at any rate. That people are saying that true. Is that true, Chuck?
Yeah. I mean, 21 was a great year. 22, probably industry about bottomed out. 23 was our best year, a great year. And 24 was a record setting year for us. And 25 has started off great. So I think it's a mindset. You manifest your result by what your expectations are. There was a sales leader in the industry that I respect. He said there's 3 things, characteristics of a great salesperson, or I think a leader, is your work velocity, how much effort you're willing to put in, your likability, how quickly can you create rapport with people, and then your willingness to learn. I think that's what I look for in people, and that's what I try to emulate myself.
Awesome. Let's put a bow on this and bring it home. Scott, I'm going to ask you both this same question, but Scott, let me throw it to you first, of course. So cold calls, cold outreach, cold emails, dead. You agree with that?
I don't know if I'd say that it's officially dead, but it is on life support. And
And we're shocking the patient.
yeah, we are trying to keep this thing alive. It's on a breathing machine right now. I mean, the reality is that our behavior and the way we interact as humans is different now than it was 10,
Yeah,
20, 30 years ago,
for
right?
sure.
I tell the story a lot, but when I was a kid and the phone rang in my house, somebody was sprinting to the phone to get it before it clicked over to voicemail, or before my mom grabbed it and embarrassed me and talked to my girlfriend before I could grab the phone or whatever, right? Like, it was an event. Now our phone's ringer is off almost 24/7. I bet all three of us, if we're being polite and we didn't forget, all of our ringers off right now, right? My ringer is off basically 24/7. We see it as a distraction. Okay. Same thing with email. Email used to be this cool, like, convenient way to get in touch with somebody that was not super invasive, right? I didn't have to plan it out when to call you and stuff like that. Now we just abuse the hell out of it. We send thousands of messages a day, templated garbage, spam. Every email I get, my initial reaction is somebody's trying to pull one over on me right now. Who's trying to scam me? Who's trying to sell me something, right? To the point where I don't even check my email as much as I used to. Okay. So I'm not saying it's dead, because there's still people that will pick up the phone every now and then, especially industry dependent, what you sell and who you're trying to sell to. You can still get people to answer the phone. There's some people who still live on email. But I have 2 teenage sons right now. You cannot convince me that they will be cold calling or cold emailing in the future. They don't behave that way at all. They don't even talk to their friends on the phone. This is like not a utility that they use, right? And they sure as hell won't answer the phone when some stranger calls them. All right. So we're going to have to evolve out of this cold call, cold email methodology. And, there's a lot of debate about where AI is going to take it and all this kind of stuff. But the one thing that I think people are forgetting is a lot of this stuff is cyclical. And if everything is done by AI and everything is done to do thousands of template things at scale, what works is by proving your humanity. What works will be going the extra mile and doing things that don't scale. It will be me sending you 2 tickets to the, Orlando Magic game because I know you're a basketball fan, and you had told me that you haven't had time to talk to your business partner about this. And I mail you 2 tickets and say, take Chuck to the game. You guys will have 3 hours of fun, and you sure as shit will have time to talk about this, right? Go have fun, chat about it or whatever. That doesn't scale. But you're not trying to scale. I'm trying to stand out. I'm trying to be different. I'm trying to create a different type of unique buying experience for you. So I think you'll see a return to relationship building. I think you'll see more warm referrals and warm intros being more and more important. And you might even see more face-to-face stuff, like, back when we were young. So
Just as a quick follow-up, where does social media fit in all of that? What platform do you like? What suits business? That's kind of a layup question for you, I know.
yeah,
But let's talk about it.
The compulsory thing is everybody should have as large a digital network on LinkedIn as humanly possible. That is like, if you don't already have a big network there, you're behind. Okay. It should be people that you might hire one day, people who might hire you one day, people you can learn from, all this type of stuff. There's no downside to having a large network. So that's where I've invested the majority of my kind of social media activity. Obviously, there's social selling there, but that's also the easiest way to do referrals, right? I might see that Chuck is connected to Rob and I can't get a hold of Rob and I want to. So I might reach out to Chuck and be like, hey, looks like you're connected to this guy, Rob. I want to talk to him. If you make an intro and I'm able to close the deal, I'll pay you 10 to 20% of the deal, right? So to me, LinkedIn is by far the best platform to engage in network growth, referral business, And it's at present, it's the most personal option as opposed to like phone, email, and stuff like that.
All right. So now that you open that door, I got to ask you a follow-up. Chuck, I'm coming to you in just a second. Hang on. Don't go anywhere, Chuck. But this is super interesting to me. So LinkedIn obviously has evolved from the employment platform that it was when it first started into sort of a, I think it'd be fair to call it a business networking platform that are connecting operators and owners and thought leaders. What's the best way to grow your network, to communicate with these people? So where I'm going with this is I see real estate in my travels today. I've seen the title agent reps on LinkedIn. I've seen the owners and the VPs on LinkedIn of title agencies. Not just them. I'm not pointing fingers, just them. Realtors, lenders. I'm focusing on real estate here. There's certainly those outside of real estate. And when they post, it's crickets. When they do anything, nobody pays attention. And I wonder why they keep doing it, because they get nothing out of it. How does somebody, whether you're a realtor or you're a sales rep for a title agency or anybody, how do you turn that around?
Well, first of all, you should probably talk to somebody who knows what they're doing and is getting engagement and is getting business from it and get some coaching on it. Second thing is, you just need to connect with and grow more people. You need to shift your mindset away from, I need to intimately know somebody in order to be connected to them. No, you don't. You just need to connect with people. You never know who you might be able to help or who might be able to help you. Then the next thing is you need to engage with other people's content more. If you're not getting any engagement, it's probably because you're not giving any engagement. So go comment on a bunch of other people's stuff so they start to see your name and become more familiar with you. And the last thing would be create better content. If you're a real estate agent, you should not just be posting a listing on LinkedIn as your piece of content. You should be talking about stuff that the entire populace would find valuable. How do you prep a house for sale? If you're buying a house, what are 5 secret hidden questions that you should be asking to get a better deal? How do you stage a house appropriately? How do you decide between a good realtor and a bad realtor? All these kinds of things that anybody who buys a house is going to ask. You should be trying to educate your audience, not sell them by saying, hey, check out MLS number 426. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about all that. But every single person in America would love to learn, well, what can I do to get a better asking price on my house? Or what can I do when I'm buying a new place to save a little bit? Everybody wants to learn that. So that's clear, I think, actionable advice that people can take and implement straight away.
All right, Chuck, your turn. This is great stuff. I know that you're involved on LinkedIn. I don't know if you use other platforms. So just talk about social media for Signature XL.
Well, we haven't, it's a B2B business. So I haven't bought into the idea of Facebook and TikTok, and some of those are the right platform for us to be in a B2B. My niche is really, the title industry. So we focused almost exclusively on LinkedIn from social media. And I like what you guys have already talked about. Cold calls and cold emails aren't fruitful these days anymore. We still do them, but can't base our growth on it. So we've really focused on you, and I'll throw kudos to you, Rob. We've engaged with you, and you've really helped us grow. I don't have 100,000 followers like Scott, but I think we're up to 13,000 now, and we post a lot of content and educational content, not just Happy Hump Day or Happy Thanksgiving. We put some educational stuff there and thought provoking. We've got a newsletter. We've got about 1,300 subscribers, I think, so far. We're only on the second edition. So, Rob, you've really helped us in that area, but I think that is a avenue we definitely want to go down that I think is worthwhile for anybody, especially with the death of cold calls and cold emails. The social media and the LinkedIn, I think, is a very viable avenue.
Awesome.
Doing it effectively, like Scott said, is very important.
Okay, let's wrap this. Scott, quick. I know we got to run here. Quick plug for Surf and Sales and the Lease 100.
Oh man, Surf and Sales. I run this sales conference called the Surf and Sales Summit. You can check it out at Surf and Sales, SALE It's kind of a half day of sales and business and leadership workshop and content. And then the other half of the day, we give people surf lessons. And I've taken people to Costa Rica for the last 7 years straight, multiple times a year. And this year I'm taking a group of 20 people to Portugal, the coast of Portugal, to go to the event. So it's a lot of fun. It's good networking, good learning. It's kind of a combination of work and vacation a little bit. And then the Lease 100, I run a private group of VPs of sales and CROs. It's just a small little coaching community where we all share what's working and what's not and help each other get better. And I'm kind of the leader of it and facilitate this coaching program. So if you're a sales leader and, want to network and communicate with people who are going through exactly what you're going through, it could be a good little group for you.
Yeah, the Lease 100, I've got a little bit of experience attending those, and we'll get more here soon. Is a great tool for BDRs and sales executives and VPs and whatever. So it's awesome, and I plan on getting, as I said, my feet wet at surf and sales. You're
gonna have to move pretty soon, Rob. I've had tickets have been available for 2 weeks and they're 50% sold out already.
Oh gosh, okay.
Off to a good start.
I'll send you my credit card right now. Chuck, Scott, this has been great. That's right. You're closing me already. Thank you very much for your time. This has been great. Let's get together and do it again when we got more to talk about, which I'm sure won't be long. Thank you very much, both of you.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.